Hello, everyone. This is Greg, your host of Goddamn Gamecube. If you enjoy our show, please subscribe to us on YouTube and leave us a review on Spotify. Thank you and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube. Greg and Riley are your hosts today. And we've got some special programming today. We don't normally talk about things that are not video games. Today we are talking about the Fallout television series, obviously based on the video game. All right, Riley, so let's get into it. Let's do this first. Let's describe the premise of the Fallout intellectual property as a whole. Go ahead.
Yes, so I would say that it's a post-nuclear role-playing game is how it's described.
Okay.
And it's essentially, if you're unfamiliar at all, it's people who have been living in vaults through a nuclear apocalypse. Most of your characters that you play have been, in this sheltered environment most of their lives. And you come out into the post-apocalypse and everything is completely insane. It's all destroyed. There's a lot of interesting factions and creatures and types of characters they run into, and evidently a pretty fertile ground for a TV show.
So what I would say is Fallout is it's a post-nuclear world, but each Fallout game takes place in a different part of America after the bombs fell.
Yes.
So my idea of Fallout is that the world ended right after Art Deco Hollywood, 1950, like that kind of Americana, post-World War II. Think if life and culture ended in 1959 and then flashes forward hundreds of years.
Right.
That's what I think Fallout is. What is your history with Fallout? We've never done Fallout content as far as I can remember.
No.
This is our first time.
Our first dedicated Fallout content. So I'm not really sure. It does. I believe so. The war apparently takes place in 2077. So I'm not really sure why it's like all very 50s oriented. Like why that style was so pervasive at the time and why that's the one that was preserved. So that's kind of interesting. But I haven't played the first two games, so maybe there's something I'm missing there.
Well, I think what they're doing is they're trying to do this thing where 2077 is 1959, but they're trying to give it context of like, think if technology advanced, but art didn't, right? So it's more believable that there's lasers and shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and it's very kind of playing into the Cold War, Red Scare kind of stuff of the time.
Yeah.
A lot of the ideologies are pretty similar to that.
But what's your Fallout gaming experience?
Yeah, so like I said, I haven't played the first two games. I've played 3, 4, and New Vegas.
I'm trying to think, is mine the same? I have not played Fallout 1 and 2, although I'm very familiar with the first one. I have finished 3, New Vegas, and 4 pretty thoroughly, all 3 of them.
Yeah, I haven't played 76.
And the general consensus is don't bother?
No, it's so at the time it was, but I believe now they have added like a story and quests and everyone I talk to seems to really enjoy it now.
Yeah.
So maybe things have changed. But when it came out, it was just not a popular game.
A small note that we will make is I have actually met Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky, which is interesting. This is really odd.
They're the creators.
Yeah, Tim Kaine, the creator of Fallout. I actually ran into them when we were singing at PAX doing the barbershop quartet thing. That was really weird.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. You got a photo with them, right?
We did. Yeah, really weird. So really nice guys. I want to mention this too. Tim Kaine has an awesome YouTube channel about not only the creation of Fallout, but also everything that has to do with running a game company, things you wouldn't think of. It's really cool, so check it out. But anyway, let's keep on the subject of the show. What were your expectations for this show?
Mine were going to be a disaster.
I thought it was going to be dog shit. I thought the Last of Us series was fine.
Yeah.
I thought it was decent.
Yeah.
There's some what do we say? There's some compliments, there's some grievances.
Yeah.
I think this might be a hot take here. I actually think the Fallout series turned out even a little bit better.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think so. I thought I was not going to like it at all.
I think mostly because the Fallout TV show is an original story that doesn't adhere to the game.
That's important for us to mention, where like the story that is going on in the Fallout TV series is an original narrative that's pulling little influences from each of the games.
Yep, exactly. So on that subject, I thought it would be pertinent to start with the casting and acting of just the leads, pretty much. So your main character is sort of the vault dweller, Ella Purnell as Lucy McLean. What do you think about this performance?
So I think she does a very good job of she has lived in a vault her whole life and doesn't know how the world works.
Yeah.
She's very polite, follows all the rules, right? Has some like quirky little dialogue.
I think the biggest point of apprehension I was going to have with the show is the tone and how well they were going to capture it.
Yes.
She is a perfect like Looney Tunes kind of like mentality approach. Because that's the weird needle that you have to thread with Fallout, is that it's kind of silly in addition to being serious.
Let's keep talking about characters, but I do want to put an asterisk here. I do think I have problems with the tone of the show at times.
It goes back and forth.
Yep.
But I thought she was a good sort of centerpiece
I think
the
so.
show.
Yep.
Aaron Moten as Maximus. Did you like him?
I actually think he does one of the better acting jobs in this series.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. And I think it's interesting that the sort of the three leads illustrate like the different ways you can play Fallout, like the kind of positive,
that's right,
negative and mixed. And he's sort of the morally gray mixed character.
Yes, does some good, does some bad.
I also think that the two of them look a lot like character models that you could make.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yep.
And one of the council members in the vault, the guy with the neck brace, I think he looks very similar to like the default Fallout 4 character.
Yes.
It's weird. I don't know what the genealogy is there, but it's interesting.
Do you think these characters were cast because they also kind of portray the more recent Star Wars movies? Where you have like, the female lead and like the love interest. I just don't remember his name.
I could see that.
Yeah,
like it's kind of a similar dynamic.
Dynamic, yeah.
Have you ever seen Ella Purnell in anything?
Maybe not. What else has she been in?
The only thing I've seen her in is this bizarre Tim Burton movie. It's called like Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children or something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I didn't realize it was her, but it's like looking back, she has these very big expressive eyes.
Sure.
And it's a very bizarre movie, but you can see a young Ella Purnell in that role. But I thought she was very good. I thought he was maybe the best of the leads.
Probably.
In terms of just the subtleties. Mm-hmm. But I do love Walton Goggins as the ghoul. I love the actor in general. I liked how the character he's sort of the Western flavor, because there is that element of it in Fallout.
Wild
occasionally
West
pops up here and there.
Can I say something about Walton Goggins?
Yeah.
He's my number one. I recognize this guy, but I don't know what his name is.
Yeah.
He's like my number one. If you ever see that meme, this actor you see all the time, you don't know what his name is.
Yeah.
It's him.
He pops up in a lot of character actor roles.
Yes.
And there's this meme going around is like, shout out to his parents for naming him that. Like, that is definitely Walton Goggins.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
It's just the look of him.
Yep.
And lastly, I have Kyle MacLachlan as the overseer.
Really interesting, right?
Oh, yeah.
You get this little Twin Peaks throwback, dude?
Yes. And he goes to the thumbs up is a very Twin Peaks thing. And that's like the Fallout iconic thing. And I think it's... I have mixed feelings overall about the character, but I think it's interesting how he starts out at like that perfect temperature of like the happy-go-lucky kind of, we're the vault and we're keeping America alive and all this stuff. And they kind of weaponize that as you realize there's more complexity to his character. But I think he's really, really incredibly cast in this universe.
I think it's a good casting. I'm kind of hit and miss on how it's executed over the course of the show, which we'll talk about.
We'll talk about it. Yeah. I feel the same. Should we get into like production and costume design?
Sure.
So please feel free to chip in at any moment here. The first thing I noticed was how well the vibrant Vault-Tec colors contrast with the rest of the wasteland. Like, she's a very, kind of yuppie character, happy-go-lucky. She's got the very bright yellow and blue. Everything else is very drab. But I noticed also that you see the ghoul when he's a younger man before the war. His outfits also use those colors.
Yep.
And he's a lot more optimistic back then. So I thought even that most basic costuming was a good choice. I'm not surprised that the Pip Boys look great. Everybody has made every cosplayer has made a Pip Boy. But the power armor I thought also looked amazing.
Yes.
And I wasn't expecting it to.
Yep.
I loved seeing the NCR Ranger helmets, the New Vegas.
That took
logo.
me a second to realize what that reference was.
Yeah.
I had to see the flag.
Pretty cool. I'd say that some of the background players are less interesting. It's not really like a Star Wars marketplace where you're seeing a new character.
It's kind of like the main characters and a bunch of generic stuff.
Yeah. And I'm not necessarily holding that against them because it helps them stand out.
Yep.
That was my take.
I think what's cool, you may mention this later, I like how they show the flaws in the power armor too, like how they work.
Yes.
It's cool.
It's very well done. What did you think of the ghoul makeup?
I think it looks exactly like I thought it would look. Where it's, I don't want to be insensitive, but they kind of look like a mixture of a zombie and someone who's been severely burned. Right?
Yeah.
That's what they look like in
I
this
would
show.
say I think so. I generally was positive on it. People were divided about it
Really?
online. Yeah. Just because I think primarily because of the main character ghoul, I think people were maybe expecting his face to look more like decayed or rotting. It's a very like the pejorative in the Fallout universe that ghouls use for humans is smooth skin.
Yeah.
And he's like missing his nose and his skin is like red. But his skin is very smooth. So it's not quite as like, and I feel like it's maybe like you're going to be looking at this guy the majority of the show. He can't look that disgusting.
I see what people are saying. It's not quite the zombie-like sort of.
He kind of looks like the Red Skull from the Avengers. He's just like similar. But I think that's probably part of it is like, this is one of your main characters. He's got to look like you can physically look at him.
You have to be able to look at him for several hours.
Yeah. I think they're making great use of the sandbox so far. I think it's always fun seeing like their version of a creature. I got excited whenever I see a rad roach.
Yeah.
Any kind of weapon or device that was in the games, they really make a big deal out of it every time something is introduced. Like seeing like the little food and drug products, like the cram and the iguana bits.
And they make use of Radaway and that kind of stuff.
Stim packs, a lot of those.
I think the 10mm pistol makes an appearance.
Yep. I love the attention to detail there. I also thought the vertibird CGI was way better than I was expecting.
This show looks better than I was expecting, period.
Yeah. No, it's just in general, I feel like in a maybe 10 years ago that wouldn't have looked like, for a TV show, probably pretty crappy. But I thought the vault interiors looked perfect.
Yes.
And I think in general, the settlements looked a little bit better than contemporaries like Last of Us, like a little bit more lived in.
Yes.
I thought it was kind of weird how heavily forested some areas were. Like I'm thinking about like Fallout 3, when you get to a forest, it's like a blasted landscape.
Right.
There's like trees with no leaves on them or anything. But it does provide a little bit of contrast for like, okay, this is clearly a different area.
Well, I think the reason why it's forested is there's been like 200 years of growth, hasn't there? Something like that since the bombs fell. Am I crazy?
Yeah. I can't remember the last time. Besides that guy who is a tree, I can't remember like the forests and
there's there's an oasis in one of the games.
Yeah. And apparently, I think you can definitely tell is they filmed in some like genuinely remote locations, like the Skeleton Coast in Namibia. It's where a lot of shipwrecks have occurred. So when they're walking along the beach, that's where you see it. So shooting on location is pretty expensive.
Oh, so
I think you can tell.
So like the shipwrecks and stuff are in real life.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. And I'm going to agree with you. I think this show looks better than The Last of Us.
Yeah. In terms of the vistas and horizons,
it looks more believable.
Yeah. I would say there's only one distractingly bad moment of set design. I don't know if you felt the same, but sort of when the last confrontation is taking place,
up on top of the tower,
I thought it was very clearly like a backdrop.
Yeah,
I thought it looked not as great as everything else, which is unfortunate. But that's really like the one complaint. Should we get into music and sound?
Sure, it's interesting.
I loved all the game accurate Pip-Boy sounds. They all sounded perfect.
Yep.
Like when you're switching screens and stuff, it looks great. I loved all like the power armor like clanking and clunking when they're walking around.
And I like how when you're in the power armor and you speak, your voice is changed.
Yeah, and they take advantage of that where he doesn't know who's in the armor. You know, it's
they use it as a plot device.
Yeah, it's pretty creative. I think the score was generally fine. Like the original score was
Yeah.
generally fine. I maybe expected more from the composer. His name is, I believe, Ramin Djawadi. He's done it like a million different things, but he's kind of made his name being the composer for Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a lot of sort of memorable, sort of hummable leitmotifs for that show, which were associated with different characters and organizations and stuff. And I felt like this one maybe just didn't have as many.
Yeah, I feel like they were kind of honing in on is the let's play a song from the 1920s to 1950s to set the mood.
Yeah, and the rest of it was not really as consequential.
Yeah, and then I know when the Fallout theme enters is really cool.
I love that. Yeah.
Yep.
No, so I think in general, like that when they invoke stuff that is pre-established, it's good.
Yep.
But like as far as the original stuff, does something that really annoys me. I just want to talk about really quickly. Whenever there's a scene change, a ton of shows do this right now. There's this little drum fill, and I'm just like, come on, you're just hamming up the drama here.
Yep.
Just like, I don't know.
I get it.
Feels very disposable. But no, I'm always very excited to hear the Galaxy News Radio classics, the 50s songs.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I always got excited when another one was coming.
A lot
up.
of Ink Blots tunes in this show.
Yeah,
Yep.
I can't wait to hear Big Iron. All those classics. I did. Yeah, I got huge feels when Lucy unfurls the NCR flag for the first time.
That took me a second. I was like, oh wait, that's this.
And then the theme comes in and they start playing it. I'm like,
so,
big feels.
Are you arguing that the licensed soundtrack is more effective than the original one?
That the music that was written for the show is not as good.
Correct. Where I think the licensed soundtrack, the Fallout sounds, the 1920s to 50s tunes are more successful than the original score.
Yeah, I think it helps like invoke the Fallout vibe.
Yeah,
you know?
Me too.
I have some overall comments on the writing of the show. I think it's kind of remarkable that the dialogue is overall not bad and often very funny. I got a lot of good laughs out of it. And I would say that for the most part, the episodes are structured pretty well, and they scratch a surprising amount of thematic depth compared to what I was expecting, at least.
So I would say we may differ on this as we go through the episodes. The humor to me was not as effective as people are claiming. To me, I did not find myself laughing at this show much at all. I thought this is a very Greg comment, though, that whenever it's grounded and serious, I like it better. Or when the humor is more subtle. There's some sexually explicit stuff later on that people thought was funny that didn't do anything for me. We'll talk about it later when we get to it. But
I'm trying to remember.
I'll just say it. There's something about like dicks exploding. You remember this? Remember this?
No,
there's an aphrodisiac scene. You don't remember this?
No.
Wow, really?
I think I blocked that out.
Wow. So people think that's funny. I just thought it was kind of stupid. But anyway, we'll keep going.
But no, I found like anything that was related to the unit. I think there's specific examples I'll call on later. That I did have a bit of a belly laugh about, and I think that it's important that Fallout is funny.
Yes.
There's a lot of what I would say is the delicate balance that you have to walk. I would say the show mostly succeeds at is that the Fallout universe is very mean-spirited.
Yes.
And it's very like walking out, like you've been this very sheltered person your whole life. You're walking out in this incredibly cruel wasteland. It's very oppressive. You have all these like health concerns to watch out for. But there's also like the world has also kind of lost its mind. So silly things happen.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of kind of just either ironic or deliberate humor, and I think that's an important part of the experience, but how successful each example will vary.
Yeah, sure, your mileage is going to vary.
So do you want to kind of get into episode by episode
here? I think we're going to do like a quick episode by episode rundown here, the basic plot points,
kind of
how we feel.
Notable moments or comments.
Sure.
So for episode 1, I thought the opening scene was like horrifying and like really well done. I just like it's like many people, one of my greatest fears, and you see this nuclear apocalypse unfolding. It's really like engrossing, where you see the ghoul as a young man, you know, before the war. He's doing like a child's birthday party, and he has like his daughters with him, and it's like he is basically trying to tell her that it's better, that the situation is better, than it's like, oh, that's just a fire, like somewhere in the distance.
Yeah.
You're seeing the bombs go off.
Yes.
And they have to escape on horseback, and it just looks incredible. It was a really good way to kind of like rope me in, like from the beginning. Very effective. I thought that they could have introduced us to each of the factions or concepts a little bit better. Like I knew what was going on, but if I told my dad, "Hey, you should watch Fallout," he's like, "So what's the deal with this?"
Actually,
Brotherhood of Steel and all that stuff.
One of my friends who does not game said that.
Yeah.
Where like it took them a while to understand like there are factions, or why should I care about this?
Yeah.
Like why is this militant force have giant body armor? They don't get it.
Yeah. Even like just getting into the vault was I felt like there was a lot of presumed knowledge.
Sure.
Which
well, that's
worked
actually
fine for me, but
that's a problem with video game properties in general. The audiences that enjoy it have presumed knowledge, and if you don't have that, it's hard to enjoy it.
Yeah, but I feel like there's ways, and this show does do it at times where it will teach you things, but make it feel fresh to people who already know what's going on. So basically, the setup here is that Lucy is in the vault. Like her dad is like there's kind of a big celebration happening or something. Like
it's like a wedding, right?
Yeah, her wedding. Yeah. And so I felt like the structure of this was great, where it's kind of the best of Bethesda quests, where there's sort of a lie that is being told, and it's like the premise of the quest is this, but it's actually this.
Right.
And I liked how they started the show out that way.
And I believe what is happening here is this is Lucy's, essentially her arranged marriage with someone in another vault.
Yes.
Right?
And the other vault, it's like Vault 32.
Yeah.
They're Vault 33. Mm-hmm. And the other vault dwellers are actually like raiders in disguise.
Yes. And I think, so how it kind of like unfolds here, like I really like that you get the twist that the folks from the other vault are raiders.
Yeah.
Because it didn't come across to me right away.
Right. They seem like they're acting kind of weird, but you can't really tell what the deal is.
Right. So can we talk about this little sequence for a second? There's some stuff I liked and some stuff that I didn't really like.
Yeah.
So what happens is you realize that the person that Lucy's going to be married to is actually a raider.
Yeah.
But how she figures this out is he drinks a lot of water. And do you remember this? He guzzles like a jug of water in their bedroom.
Yeah.
And then she's like, that's weird. Like, why are you so thirsty?
Yeah.
And she puts up like a Geiger counter to him, and it goes off like he's irradiated.
Yeah.
And whoa.
I like that.
I love that too. What I didn't like so much was how the combat or how the violence was portrayed in this episode. I was not sure whether they were trying to make it be serious or funny.
I think, what it is for me is that, like I said, it's that delicate balance of sometimes the violence in Fallout is played for laughs. I think it was maybe a mistake to do it in the first episode like this while you're setting up the quest.
So for me, there were several scenes in this combat scenario where characters are hiding under picnic tables. Clearly, if in real life you could see them, but they're hiding in plain sight and not being seen. Like, and the combat doesn't look realistic. It's silly on purpose.
Someone loses an eye. Like some of the vault dwellers get killed by the raiders. Like to be clear, and it's very like it's like slow motion. There's like a 50s pop song playing. It's I would call it played for laughs.
Yeah. I think
I don't think it was the right time.
I think you said it best. They're playing it for laughs, and I didn't like it very much. I didn't think this was the right time.
Right. But what winds up happening here is that her father, portrayed by Kyle MacLachlan, he gets kidnapped by this raider woman named Moldaver, who's seemingly like she's like a raider leader, and it seems like she is going to be the sort of the de facto villain of this arc or story or whatever. And I liked how it's kind of like Fallout 3, but just different enough. Like your dad goes missing.
Yes,
similar setup, but just enough different to
either pulling it from that.
Yeah. So that's all I had for episode 1.
Yep, me too.
Episode 2, Michael Emerson is the guest star. This he's a scientist. He was a villainous character on Lost, so I was familiar with him. I love the little kind of intro here where he was working in some vault where they were doing experiments on dogs, and one of the dogs like he rescues and kind of becomes like a featured like supporting player through the rest of the season.
Yep.
I feel like that's kind of an iconic part of Fallout that they inherited from Mad Max, is having like a character walking with a dog next to them.
Yes.
It's on like a lot of the box art and stuff.
Probably an influence.
This is also the one with Maximus, one of the main characters. He's a Brotherhood of Steel squire. He's assigned to support with this Brotherhood of Steel knight.
Yep.
And who is, it turns out, is played by Michael Rappaport.
I love this casting. Not everyone does.
I think it's genius.
I think it's really funny. Of course, it's like Boston accent, like fucking idiot, right?
Well, because all you hear is the voice, the distorted voice.
All you hear is
the armor.
the Brotherhood of Steel tough guy.
Fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
this is all your fault.
Yeah.
And it's like, I kept asking myself, like, who's this going to be when they take off the helmet? And of
Yeah.
course, it's him.
I think that's great.
And there's this very interesting sort of turn here where he gets attacked by a bear,
Yes.
and Maximus, I think it's off screen, right? Leaves him to die and steals his armor.
It's kind of on screen. Also, is that bear supposed to be a reference to the what are they called?
Yaguai?
Yaguais?
I thought so, but the Yaguai are two-headed bears. That's on the NCR flag.
That's true.
So I don't know if that was part of it, but he steals the armor from him.
Right. So essentially what's happening here is Michael Rappaport is Titus the Knight.
Yeah.
Maximus wants to be a knight.
Yeah.
Right? But Maximus was not very well liked among the recruits.
Right.
He kind of gets bullied. He has a friend who also kind of gets bullied, but they're very unpopular.
Yeah, well, because you find out later on that it's sort of because he was the new guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we have to all pick on somebody.
Right. And I do think Maximus letting Michael Rappaport die it's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that this happened.
Yeah.
I'm also half of me is not surprised because Maximus doesn't have to go through an initiation process. Titus treated him like shit.
Yeah.
He's out in the wasteland. We should set this up though, where when you're a squire of Titus essentially sent him off to die. Like, hey, go check out this cave, like whatever.
Yeah,
you remember this?
Having no armor or weapons.
He has no armor, like no weapons. He's essentially being left to die anyway.
Yeah, his life is not considered very valuable
Correct.
by the knights.
So I think that's why Maximus said, well, fuck this guy.
Oh yeah, no, it's just interesting that I don't think you actually see Michael Rappaport's character die. So I'm not sure if you'll see him later, but you get into this settlement here that's made out of like space shuttles.
Yes.
Called Philly. This is kind of like your Megaton stand-in from
Yep.
Fallout 3. There's a kind of a standoff here where Michael Emerson's character, the scientist, he's like looking for a safe passage to Moldaver, the raider leader from the last episode. And the ghoul shows up there and blows his leg off, which I wasn't expecting at all. And they take this big bucket of like prosthetic limbs out of a bucket. It says Jim's limbs.
Yep.
And they screw it on. It's like very gruesome.
Yes.
I think, I don't know. I wasn't expecting, this is kind of where you get a sense of like that the ghoul is like the renegade character. He's like kind of closer to evil than anybody else.
Well, should we talk about how the ghoul is introduced? Do you remember this? He's kind of
like buried.
He's like taken out of a tomb or something. You remember this?
I think this is where I started to, because I have like, I would call a pretty good grasp on like Fallout lore and stuff, but not as good as like fans, like super fans. So I was kind of asking a lot of questions during these couple episodes where how does being a ghoul work?
Yes, I was asking the same thing.
And is it the same as in the games?
Mm-hmm.
So he's like buried underground, and there's like an IV like dripping into it, and he's having like people change it. So I guess that's how he rests.
Yeah,
maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he shows up here in this town. They have kind of a standoff with him and Lucy and Maximus, who helps her out. She and the doctor escape, and the doctor is like, "I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna take." He took a cyanide pill. It's like kind of like it's like a Vault-Tec like flavored. He's like, "Oh, it tastes pretty good, but I'm gonna die." And you have to take my head to Moldaver. Right? Yeah.
So for some reason, like Lucy has to deliver this severed head to Moldaver. Yeah, and that's as much as like you get.
Something. He has something in his brain or something that is going to of value to this organization.
Very Hellblade kind of. Aren't you delivering a head?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So episode 3. I would consider this a very funny, subtle joke. Is that Maximus's armor gets broken in his fight with the ghoul? It's too cumbersome, so the ghoul cuts some piece of it out or something, and he's unable to use it. So he needs to get the armor fixed. but he doesn't have enough caps, the currency, to pay for it. So he goes and sells some of his teeth.
Yeah.
And then when he goes back for repairs, he's like lisping.
Yeah.
It's really, really nice little subtle joke. And it's cool that you kind of see him on the back foot when he's out of the armor. Like he's like, that is his real bargaining chip. And when he doesn't have it, he's screwed.
I do want to say this too, before we get too far. The difference with ghouls in this is that they're like unkillable, like forces of man in this. Where like, you know, in the games, you can kill ghouls just like normal people. But like Walton Goggins in this show was like this unkillable like force of dude.
Because you run into a couple other coherent ones over the course of the story, but not many. Like there's one that's dying a couple episodes later. So I couldn't tell if that was like a ghoul thing or if he was just like really good, good at shooting.
Yeah. But back to Maximus.
Yeah. So he's kind of stuck in this town for a bit. And then because they haven't heard a check-in at the Brotherhood of Steel base, they send another recruit to him who happens to be the guy that
was bullying him.
Ooh. And I thought this was great, where they make him run back into the armor and get into it so the guy can't realize that he's Maximus and not the knight.
And not Michael Rappaport.
Right. So I thought this was very effective. And it's also kind of in line with a Fallout quest where you can lie to an NPC to kind of manipulate them and do that kind of thing. And there is the first, like, I would say major monster here, which I thought looked really cool. It's just this like sea creature that
the gulper.
It's in like the swamp.
Yep.
And it has a bunch of like human fingers in its mouth.
Weird, right?
It's kind of like the centaurs.
Yep.
In Fallout 3, absolutely disgusting. But I thought it looked amazing, like for like in terms of the fidelity.
Yes.
Like it was believable. And it swallows the head, and they have to track it down. Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Lucy is with the ghoul. Maximus is doing his own thing. Difficult sort of moral situation begins brewing back home in Vault 33, where Lucy's brother Norm, he needs to decide what to do with the Raider prisoners that are left over from the attack. And it's really like it's kind of an interesting Fallout moral quandary. Like, what would you do if you were playing the game? Like, would you kill them? Would you let them go? Would you exile it? Like, what would you? And it's kind of a tough, because they have this debate like in the town hall. Like, what should we do with them? Which is like, obviously, what you would do in the world of Fallout is different than what we would do
in real life.
Yep. That's important to keep in mind.
Don't they end up just imprisoning them and feeding them? Right.
For a while.
Yeah, for a while.
And you had a point about the Vault 32.
Subplot. Where like, I believe this is the point where, is this the point where Norm goes into the other vault?
Yes.
Where Norm realizes that like the Vault 32 is completely destroyed.
The bodies are like skeletons. It's been dead for a while.
And the Raiders have been in there for years.
Right.
That's interesting.
And I think this is maybe my favorite scene in the show, where because the ghoul, when he was younger, his name was Cooper Howard, I believe.
Yes.
He was an actor.
He's essentially John Wayne.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he is the one who came up with, because this is like a famously, like something that they used to do during nuclear tests is like,
the thumbs up.
The thumbs up to see if the explosion's bigger than your thumb, then you're screwed, right?
Yep.
And he is essentially, he's the guy who patents the Vault Boy, the iconic Fallout Vault Boy thumbs up.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where like this series has existed, the game series has existed for 30 years. But like something like that is like such a huge piece of like the lore.
And I don't think it's ever explained in the games.
Not to my knowledge, but it worked really well for me.
Yeah, I loved it too, where Walton Goggins' character is like this John Wayne sexy Wild West actor.
Yep.
And Vault Tech wants him to do infomercials or commercials, and he does the thumbs up as a fucking advertisement. Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
And like just an ad lib. Like I thought an idea I had, and it's just, and that's it. And that's how the episode ends. I thought it was brilliant. So episode 4, more ghoul discussions here. I don't think I was aware of the lore that if a ghoul runs out of chems, they turn into a feral ghoul.
Is that what he's injecting himself with? Chems?
Yeah.
Is that
like
it?
some kind of
magic potion.
Yeah. Med-X or whatever the fuck. I'm not sure. I don't remember if this was the case in the games. Do you?
I don't think so. I don't think it is.
I know there are feral ghouls, but my impression was that it was kind of just like a Dark Souls Hollow thing.
That's
like
what I
they
thought it
lost
was.
their purpose or something. I don't know. The finger violence really made me cringe in
Me
horror.
too.
I was like, oh my, because was she bites one of his fingers off and then he cuts one of her fingers off
so
in retaliation.
the ghoul cuts
right?
off one of Lucy's fingers.
Yeah. Oh my god, it looked like horrifying. And then he takes her to the Super Duper Mart, which is a thing from the games.
Yep.
And
tries to sell her
for like organ harvesting.
Yes.
The guy from What We Do in the Shadows, Matt Berry, plays one of the Mr. Handy robots.
Yep.
It's called Snip Snip. And another actor I like, Maddie Carter-Opal, was one of the raiders in the Super Duper Mart. Very deadpan kind of acting presence.
What I think was interesting though is how Lucy's fingers she's immediately given another one.
Yes.
By the Snip Snip robot
but
or whatever.
My question is, and it's kind of funny because it's like clearly been dead for a long time, so she just has one like blackened finger.
Yes.
But I was like, why would they bother if you're going to harvest her organs, and they don't seem to be interested in keeping her alive?
I think what was going on here was they were trying to imply to you that she was going to be sold into sex slavery. But
she suggests that to the robot. He's like, "Oh, nothing so crass. We're just gonna take out your organs."
I think that's the rug pull.
It's like, why would you? I don't know.
I think what the rug pull is, you think she's gonna be sold into like servitude, so they want her to look pretty. But then you get the rug pull of no, we're harvesting your organs. But the robot wouldn't know that. He's just doing the program duty. I think that's what that's the humor they were going for here.
Okay, yeah, but in logistic terms, like, why would you bother giving her another finger?
I think they did that because her value would be higher.
Oh, okay.
She's unflawed. I
guess,
think that's why. I think.
Regardless, I thought there was a little bit more thematic breadth to the vault plot back home than pretty much anything else. One of the council members, portrayed by Leslie Uggams, she's probably most famous for the Deadpool movies. She's kind of the cranky neighbor. She gives Norm, Lucy's brother, she gives him this speech about cruelty and how he needs to be careful about like deciding what to do with the raider. She's like, if like a stupid person gets angry, like they'll just break something or pee on the wall or something. She's like, if an intelligent person, it feels cruel. Like that terrifying things can happen.
Sure.
That's what you need to be. And she knows he's like an intelligent kid. He could probably be a leader someday. But it's like, I thought it was an interesting conversation that they had. And you had another point about the end of this episode too.
Yeah. Something that I found interesting. You get a little bit of an olive branch here where Lucy gives Howard ghoul medicine.
Yeah.
Because Howard essentially collapses after he gives Lucy over to the slavers, essentially.
Because he wants his payment is going to be the chems that keep him from turning feral.
Correct.
But he can't reach them because he's freaking out. Right?
Yep. He has run out of chems. I think chems is implied.
Yeah.
He's run out of chems for him to stop being feral. He gets her to the door, then collapses.
Yeah.
And he's gonna turn into a feral ghoul unless he gets more medicine.
Yeah.
And I was a little surprised that Lucy gave it to him.
Yeah.
I think this is interesting, where this is a very smart idea by the show. Now they have a little bit of a I help you, you help me.
Yeah.
We're like almost like the I feel like because Howard could have killed Lucy at any point.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's a badass fucking crazy guy.
Yeah.
He could have done anything, but there's now a little bit of camaraderie.
Yeah.
Right?
And they make it very explicit where, because she's like the true paragon.
Yeah.
And he's the true renegade kind of character, where he keeps trying to tell her, oh, the world is like disgusting and horrible.
Yes.
And it's like, this is just the way it is up here. You've been very sheltered. And she's like, I may, it may affect me, but I'm never going to change like who I am.
Yeah.
So she helps him out. And it's almost like a little bit of an IOU in that sense.
And is this the first time where Lucy fires a weapon?
I think so.
I think so, right?
And I did want to mention like that some of the like his gun is awesome.
Yeah.
Just like it's like a tiny little like mini nuke thing.
Yes.
Like blows limbs off and stuff. And you see the junk jet at one point.
Yes, you do.
Like you shoot like a baby's leg at somebody.
Yep.
That was really funny. So episode 5, I felt like this is a good time to mention that I felt like the middle of the season was less eventful in terms of memorable stuff happening. and I feel like they could have maybe condensed it a little bit further, like fewer episodes.
I don't know if I agree with this.
Okay.
But you can start. But I think there are some key moments in this one.
So I think so Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan's brother, created the show or helped or co-created it rather, and he directed the first 3 episodes, and I thought those were really where they're putting their best foot forward.
Okay.
And I think episodes 4 and 5 just felt a little bit less impactful.
Okay.
In terms of like unique stuff. But this is the one where they come across Shady Sands, which is the capital of the NCR, New California Republic, very heavily featured in the first Fallout game. And they find out that it has been destroyed by like another nuclear bomb.
Yep.
And so do you imagine that, because we see a little bit of the NCR in this show, do you think this is all that's left of them? Or do you think there's more beyond that? I wasn't sure.
I wasn't sure either.
I thought it was kind of vague on that point. This is also the one where you have the election to replace Lucy's father as the overseer.
Because he was taken away, so they have to elect a new leader.
Yes. And so you find out that every overseer has been from Vault 31, which is one of the neighboring vaults. They've never selected one from Native 33.
Interesting. Yep.
Maximus, he makes the mistake here of confessing to his squire,
his bully,
Thaddeus, who is the bully. And of course the bully's like freaking out. Maximus steps on his foot.
Yep.
And he removes the fusion core from Maximus's armor, so he's stranded.
I think it was interesting how Maximus is stranded in the suit.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
It's horrible.
Yes.
To imagine. So Lucy comes along and rescues him. He keeps running into each other.
Sure. I actually think there's a really cool moment here, though, where Lucy... so Lucy does help Maximus, but Lucy has been infected with radiation.
Yes, because the ghoul forced her to drink irradiated water.
Correct. Earlier in a shot.
Yeah.
And also used her as fish bait.
Yes.
That was earlier, too.
Yep.
So what happens here is Lucy shoots a bunch of rad roaches off of Maximus.
Yep.
And then Lucy, I believe, helps get Maximus out of the suit. But then Lucy passes out.
Yep.
And Maximus gives her rad away. And I think that was the deal they struck, right? Where Lucy doesn't want to help Maximus because she's starting not to trust anybody.
Right.
And Maximus says, "You have radiation poisoning. I have Radaway in my suit. Get me out of this, and you're gonna die."
Yeah.
Which was very interesting.
That's the kind of bargain they make. So they are walking along this bridge.
Yeah.
It's just kind
so Maximus and Lucy are teamed up at this point.
This tense encounter happens with some people they can't really see. I thought it was a well-staged situation where they're like, we'll just raise our hands at the same time.
Yep.
And then the people on the other side draw their weapons, and Maximus shoots them because Lucy wants to trust them, but he's like, nah.
You also, they do a cool rug pull here where you think Lucy made the right choice of like, oh, Maximus just wants to kill them.
Right.
And Lucy said, let's all put our hands up. Let's just walk past each other. But the opposing party tries to kill Maximus and Lucy.
Right.
And then I believe Maximus does shoot and kill them both.
He pulls the gun out of her holster and kills them.
And I'm not sure if this was a vague like VATS reference where he shoots them accurately and kills them in slow-mo. I don't know if it could have been. I don't think it is.
I was wondering where that was, if that was going to pop up, because it's such a weird thing.
It could have been a VATS reference, but I think I'm making that up.
They're fiends.
They're cannibals.
Yeah. So that's that. But
I believe Maximus notices they are cannibals because they have deformed teeth.
Right.
I believe that's what he was noticing.
So, yeah, I mean, you're correct. There's like kind of little character moments happen in the middle of the season, but relative to the other ones, I felt like they weren't maybe as...
Sure.
And what's coming up, I think these are very eventful. So episode 6 is they wind up in another vault.
Maximus and Lucy.
Yes.
This is the dick explosion part, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They fall into like this little like trap kind of thing in a building,
but they went into a hospital, right? They were trying to find medicine or
medical supplies for Maximus
because he got shot by the fiends. Yep.
And they fall into Vault 4.
Yes.
Which has opened itself up to survivors from Shady Sands, the city. And I thought this was really funny. They were led by their overseer is Chris Parnell, but he's a Cyclops.
Yes.
I was like, is that who I think it is?
Yes.
And of course it is. There's no mistaking that. So Can I ask you what was going on with the weird, like, half-naked ritual in this
I don't
vault?
understand this at all. I have no idea.
Like, I think a lot of it is like I don't really fully understand the Moldaver character.
Yes.
And this is like so this vault is like they keep telling Lucy, oh, it gets a little lively when they do this thing, like the survivors, they do this ritual, and they like take off like their tops, like only their tops, and they all like pray to this like burning shrine.
It's really odd. I don't know. This was not my favorite episode. A lot of weird stuff here.
So this is also where Lucy uncovers. So this is kind of where they introduce the idea of the vaults are for human experiments.
Yes.
So Lucy uncovers these human experiments were being performed there, and the vault residents overthrew them. The scientists were experimenting on the vault dwellers. It's like some woman giving birth to like fish in a bathtub.
Well, there's also another subplot going on here with Maximus where he now kind of likes being in the vault. Remember this?
Because he's not used to the lifestyle.
He's not used to clean water and clean food, and like he's wearing a bathrobe and takes a shower. And by the way, I think what's happening here, you may have missed this, I think the scientists are feeding them aphrodisiacs. That's why Maximus makes all the sexual references.
Oh, really?
Remember Lucy says to Maximus, do you want to have sex? Remember this?
Right.
It's in this. I think they're feeding them.
Right. Yeah.
I think they're trying. And then you get the little nod of that woman like birthing fish or something.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Because I thought it was weird too, where he's like, he makes some gauche comment about like, is this like when your dick like pops?
Yes.
Like,
and it like, sounds like.
But I was like, is he fucking with her? Is he joking around?
No, I think they either pump something into the room oxygen wise, or they're feeding them substances.
No, but like he doesn't know like how that works.
That's why I think they were already drugging them. I think that's the implication here.
Okay, so it's I didn't pick up on.
But
this.
why do you think Maximus wants to stay? I think he's already being drugged. I think is what's happening.
So knowing that this experiment is going on opens up the question on what experiment was being performed on the residents of vaults 31 through 33, because they are all linked together.
Yes.
So this eventually dovetails into a subplot in the past where the ghoul, his name is Cooper Howard at the time, he begins spying on his wife, who is a Vault Tech executive. And this is where you see Moldaver in the past for the first time.
This is a part I did not understand. And if I got this wrong, I'm sorry. But I understand how Cooper Howard became a ghoul and has lived 200 years.
Yes.
I don't understand how Moldaver has lived for 200 years. They do explain later that scientists were kept in cryo. I think that's Fallout 4 reference.
Yeah.
But Moldaver was not a part of Vault Tech, so how is she still alive?
Yeah, we'll dig into it in the
later.
finale.
That's coming.
Episode 7, I thought this was a really clever reference, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Okay.
The ghoul is, he shows up and do you remember this with the farmer and his son?
Yes.
In their house. They're like picking up like bullets out of the ground.
Yes.
And stuff. It's pretty cool. But this whole scene is very reminiscent of a scene in the beginning of Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with the villain.
Oh, I thought it was I didn't catch that reference. I thought this was like a No Country for Old Men reference.
That's probably drawn from the same thing.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
But, it's very similar. He like shoots the kid and stuff like that.
Yep.
And so I thought this was odd. The way that they got out, that Lucy and Maximus get out of the Vault 4 situation was kind of sudden and odd. Did you feel the same way?
Yes.
Because the issue is that the power armor needs a fusion core to walk around, to be operatable. And the bully, Maximus's bully, stole it.
Yeah.
So the armor has been marooned in this one spot, which felt like miles away.
Yes.
And the way that he steals the fusion core from Vault 4, seemingly runs all the way back to the armor,
gets in it and comes back.
But the timing doesn't really make sense.
No, it doesn't.
So I thought that was odd. The Raider prisoners back home, they get poisoned here.
Yes.
Which I thought there was an interesting point that one of the council members makes to Norm, where she is kind of touching on something that's a very hot topic right now, where she says words have meaning.
Yes.
Because Norm brought this up at the meeting, like, I don't know, should we kill them? You know, and it's like somebody took his words literally and acted on them, even if he didn't seriously consider it. So it's pretty cool. I thought this was really funny. Fred Armisen's radio station.
Yeah.
Like, of course, he's the guy.
Yes.
He's like the 3 dog of this part of the
Yes,
world.
that's the character's name.
And there's this little confrontation here where Thaddeus, the bully character, is going to get picked up by the Brotherhood. He says, I have the head that you're looking for. And Fred Armisen sees the Lucy and Maximus come out of the distance. He's like, oh, is this friends of yours? And they pull their guns out.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, I guess not. And he shuts himself back in the radio station. It's really funny.
Is this the part where Thaddeus realizes he's a ghoul?
He steps on one of the traps that's outside the radio station, and there's like an arrow through his neck. He's like, why am I not dead?
Yeah, I think what happens is, like, to fix his broken foot that Maximus stepped on, he took ghoul medicine.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the guy...
The weird medicinal ghoul guy.
Okay, here's a joke that really hit hard for me because I wasn't it's like the dumbest joke they could make, but they did it. Was the guy with the chickens?
Yes.
So this is the doctor that has the... that gives him the ghoul medicine. Maximus like helps him out earlier, and because there's a guy threatening the doctor's life, and he says, "Look, I'm really sorry, man, but the guy was fucking my chickens."
That's funny.
Maximus's face is just like,
yes,
okay,
yes. Or essentially, Maximus saved somebody, but he was fucking animals.
Yeah,
yes.
So
funny.
This doctor comes out later. He's like, "Oh, I can fix your foot." The recruit, the bully,
Thaddeus,
and then his foot is fixed, but it's ghoul chems or whatever that he gave him. So he's like, I guess he is
now a ghoul.
Yeah, and we'll see him next season, I'm sure, and he'll be like disgusting. Is my theory. So you discover here that the head that everybody wants contains a formula for cold fusion, which Moldaver evidently developed in the past, and it was rejected by Vault Tech executives at the time because it wasn't as profitable as war. So that's her character
existence.
grind.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're ready, we'll get into the finale here.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you see the continuation of that in the past, where the ghoul learns the truth about his wife, that she is like incredibly nefarious. Like this council that she's on, they're essentially pushing the war into existence. They're pushing for acceleration because the vaults are going to do very well financially.
Yes.
For that reason, like their whole business is invested in the war accelerating, which was interesting.
Well, essentially, Howard is like this very like meat and potatoes Americana actor, like John Wayne, and his wife, which you think is almost a progressive scientist, is actually pushing war into existence through vault profit. Yeah, that's what's going on in quote unquote real life in the past.
Yeah, he has like a friend who gets him into like some kind of like socialist meeting or something, and he's like, I don't believe in all that, and then so he can't help but there's like some feeling that's nagging him, and he discovers this about his wife, and she drops the iconic "war never changes" line. And you had a couple other observations.
So this might be a good time to mention there's a conference room scene with a bunch of references to characters in games. Mr. House is there.
I missed that.
Yeah, the guy with the mustache.
Yeah.
Big Empty is there. Do you remember the Big Empty reference? I think it's in New Vegas.
Yep.
There are other folks there too, but those are the ones that jumped out to me as more subtle.
Yeah, it's like I somehow missed Mr. House, which is like huge, but that's great. So yeah, it turns out Hank and the other Vault Tech employees, Hank is Lucy's father, they were in cryo since the beginning of the war to supervise the vaults under the care of a brain on a Roomba.
Yep.
He's another like minor executive character earlier in the show. And I guess this is something that will pay off later in the series, is that Norm, Lucy's brother, gets trapped in Vault 31.
So I guess what's happening is Norm uncovers this information, right? That where his dad, several executives from 2077 were kept alive in cryo during the war, and they are the Vault leaders.
Yes, exactly.
And doesn't Norm have almost like an AIM discussion with someone or something, how he discovers this.
Yeah, like he gets on one of the overseer's computer.
Correct.
And they think he's someone else.
Essentially, like the robot Roomba thing traps Norm after he learns that information.
Yeah. So essentially, I guess the experiment is that they preserve the minds of people from pre-war to be like the middle managers.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Which is not as like salacious as I was expecting, but it's
right.
That's kind of the.
Can I bring up my
here.
question again?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how Moldaver is still alive. Like, she's not a ghoul.
Yeah.
She's not in cryo because she wasn't a Vault-Tec executive. So is it the same Moldaver? Am I stupid? Like, what did I miss?
No, okay, so I think it is the same Moldaver because when she kidnaps Kyle MacLachlan, he's like, "Oh, it's you."
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And like her whole thing was that she was the scientist who developed the cold fusion that they rejected. And so she has an axe to grind. She's trying to resurrect the technology in the post-war world, right? They definitely did not explain it. I am like...
Is she a ghoul?
What?
Is she a ghoul?
No.
I know, but I don't get it.
No, like I'm 99% sure that they just did not include this. Like,
right.
Presumably the only way that it could have been was cryo, but she wasn't part of that faction.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
that was confusing to me.
I feel like that was like kind of a missed... Like they may... explain it in the future, but the character is dead, so it doesn't really matter
true.
as much now.
Yeah. That's true.
But so this is where you find out that Hank orchestrated the destruction of Shady Sands, and in doing so turned his wife into a feral ghoul, Lucy's mother.
Who was Lucy's mother? Yep.
Because Lucy's mother took her out of the vault as a child, and his rationale was like, oh, you took her out into the danger of the world, and it needed to be erased so we can build society better.
And doesn't Lucy have memories of seeing the sun? That's why this keeps coming up. Yeah. Right.
And I don't think I fully bought this.
Bought what?
You felt like his whole character twist and motivation. Like you had to have another layer, but like the whole like, oh, I had to set off a nuclear bomb in a thriving civilization so that you never went back there. Like it just, I don't know.
I get. They didn't quite sell it
to me.
Yeah, me either.
At least. I did think it was incredible that we get he jumps into a suit of power armor at the end. So you get Kyle MacLachlan wearing a suit of power armor, which is something I never thought I would see in my life.
Yeah, right.
Very interesting.
I do like the whole Lucy's mom as a ghoul, and she has to kill her.
She's kind of like zombified. She's chained up at the table.
And how do you notice she's wearing the necklace?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty thoughtful.
It makes perfect sense. It's just like his character
is absurd.
Is tough for me to reconcile. And he kind of blasts off at the end into the sky. Mm-hmm. And there's this kind of battle scene here. I was actually watching the finale when my dad walked in. He was absolutely horrified when the vertibirds have to avoid like rockets that are being fired, and one guy like falls out and he gets turned into like confetti in a propeller, and my dad was like horrified. He's like, oh, that's gross.
Dude, it's all fake, man.
I'm like, this isn't real, man.
Yeah.
But no, it's kind of just a very quick battle where the Brotherhood arrives because they want to take back this. Their whole thing, I believe, is resurrecting technology, right?
Yes.
Or finding valuable technology.
Yeah.
And so they're after this cold fusion device here. They knight Maximus because he found it, and they think he killed Moldaver, who was killed in the shootout.
Well,
and
there's an important note here where Moldaver puts cold fusion into action before she dies.
Yeah.
Because I believe what's happening is Kyle MacLachlan, Agent Cooper, gives the code to Moldaver so she can put cold fusion into place.
Yes.
There's a key scene where I think it's either the lights of LA or something are lit up.
They all light up in the night sky.
Yes, that is important.
And that looks fine. But like during the daytime, it looks terrible. But so she kind of gives him the choice here, like, well, it's in your hands now, and you're going to have to decide what to do with it.
Yeah.
And a pretty effective way to leave it for a character who's kind of morally gray.
Yeah.
You know, like, what is he going to do? And Lucy and the ghoul, they hit the road at the end together, which I think is a good choice.
And why
good
did they hit the
pairing.
road together?
I don't know.
It doesn't. Isn't it one of the? They have like a combined interest because the ghoul thinks
he wants to find his family.
His family's still
and
alive.
She wants to find her dad.
Correct.
Right.
So they team up instead.
And what do they leave us with at the end here?
A little New Vegas bait here.
Yeah. So I got a little smile on my face. I'll admit. Where Kyle MacLachlan, the last thing you see is him walking towards New Vegas. The bait has been set. We have to see season 2.
Yeah.
Where I think it's really funny that New Vegas is not a Bethesda game.
Yes.
But like they're kind of finally giving it its moment in the spotlight here.
Correct.
And I had a question for you. It was like, do you think like general audiences will like give a shit?
Yes, because I think what's going to happen is with New Vegas is going to answer a question I have for our final thoughts.
Okay. Because I was like, it reminded me of the end of the Walking Dead season where they show the prison, which is a significant moment in the comic books. But if you haven't played any of the games, like, what? Oh, Las Vegas? Okay.
Well, but Las Vegas is more relatable than a generic prison.
Yeah.
It's more because people know what Vegas is.
Yeah, but they don't. The import is so much bigger in Fallout lore than just seeing Las Vegas. So do we want to get into direction and overall thoughts here?
Sure.
So I'm not sure if this has been done at least so well in a Fallout property before, but I appreciated the focus that they gave to the purpose of the vaults.
Yes.
And the clash of like community versus barbarism. Mm-hmm. And how much can the vault dwellers change the surface world versus how much will it change them? I don't think it's ever been put in quite so ironclad terms before.
I think how they did this effectively was other vaults are still alive and they go in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, which you don't really see in the games.
Not so much. I don't think the season was perfect. As we've said, there are some issues, but I do think it was pretty great overall as a product. Much better than I thought it would be, certainly.
Me too.
And I think the trick to keeping it up will be coming up with a new overarching mystery now that the main one's been solved.
Yep.
And continuing to make good use of like the weapons, the creatures, the factions, etc. And my last question to you sort of is, what do you want to see in future seasons? I mean, so we know New Vegas is presumably next. I think they're kind of shooting their shot a little early. Like, what do they do after that is my question.
Maybe it'll be a limited series. I don't know.
Could be, but they did name drop super mutants in that meeting, the boardroom meeting. And they show a Deathclaw skull in the very last scene.
There's plenty of antagonists in this upcoming season. Plenty of enemies and scary stuff.
Yeah, it's the stuff that I was like waiting for. I'm like, when are they going to get to that? And so there's still reasons to tune in, right?
Yep.
I want to see those Mirelurks. I want to see the Centaurs, as disgusting as they are. And I am hoping that they have fun with all the great stuff in the New Vegas sandbox, like the Kings and all those guys.
It's actually getting into what I was about to say.
Yeah,
like you had asked me, like, what do I want to see? Like, I want to see more like civilization outside the vaults and how pop culture was frozen in time.
Yeah,
you don't really see that.
There's a lot of wasteland in the first season.
There's a lot of wasteland and there's a lot of deserts of nothing.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the Fallout series is like the Art Deco 1940s and 50s meets modern times.
Yeah.
Kind of how like it's a time capsule or frozen in time aesthetic. Like there isn't a lot of crossover of the past to the present in season 1. Like examples like cars, television advertisements, clothes, ideologies.
Yeah.
Like my favorite moments in the game, like you said, are like the twisted Elvis Presley, Hollywood transatlantic stuff. And what's so funny to me about Fallout is you just brought up, like, what are they called? The Elvis guys? You just said
the Kings.
The Kings.
Yeah.
Because he was the king of rock and roll.
Right. And so they have a gang. They all dress like him.
Yes. And I thought that was what was missing from the show was they didn't do the bring me something that was frozen in time in 1950 that is happening now.
Yeah,
they didn't do that.
And it's kind of evolved into this weird cultural thing.
Where they got it wrong, essentially.
Exactly.
Like, the way my quote here was, the last thing humans did was Hollywood movie stars and muscle cars.
Yeah.
Think if that's how the world ended.
Yes.
They don't do that in the show, but I think we're going to get it with New Vegas.
Yeah, for sure.
The last thing I want to kind of say is if I were to critique this show, I am not sure how well gore and humor landed for me on this show. I actually thought the first few episodes were overly gory, but they also portrayed the gore to be funny. And to me, those two things are rarely funny together. example, I tried to compare it to, remember like the Monty Python stuff where the guy's losing limbs?
Yeah.
To me, that's not that funny. Like, it's just not my kind of humor.
Okay.
It's just, I'm not saying it's bad or offensive.
Yeah.
I just don't find it funny.
Sure.
And like when the vault is getting raided by raiders and people are like getting bloodied and bodied, but it's also humorous, I don't find that funny.
Well, let me say this, is that I think when you're trying to do it, like Monty Python is a comedy movie.
Correct.
And there's times when I think you can flirt with that. Like I'm thinking about like the end of Django Unchained.
Sure.
When they're playing Rick Ross and
Yes.
he starts shooting everybody, and it's just like everything is just exploding in squibs, and it's like stupid.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And it's like it's supposed to be this operatic, like crazy thing. I think there is like a time and a place for it. I think like middle season, you can kind of get away with those kind of antics.
But you
can
shouldn't set up the show like that.
right. Like that, like I said, that first, when they get attacked by raiders, it should have been kind of like tragic or serious.
You got to set the tone, I
Yeah.
think. And like to me, I just my critique thought is I am not sure at times whether they were trying to be serious, shocking, or funny, and none of those things tended to work out for me.
You know when it really didn't work for me is like, where I think they went overboards, is like the ghouls, I didn't know they eat people.
Oh yeah,
And he's
yeah,
like, you gotta start carving up that guy's ass for me. And
Yeah,
he
that was
makes her,
interesting.
like gives her a knife and stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I don't know what the fuck that was about, but
I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about this.
it's such a hard tightrope to walk, because I do feel like that is part of the Fallout experience, is finding the humor and stuff like that. But it's there's going to be some that are more successful than others.
I think I will agree with you though that I do think this was a very successful adaptation. Are we in final thoughts now? Should we try to wrap?
Yeah. Oh, you had another comment about laser weapons?
Did we see any like laser weapons, Fat Man nukes, that kind of stuff?
Not yet. So there's plenty of stuff they could.
There's plenty of
mess
stuff to
around
pull
with.
from. So if I were to be like, are we doing grades?
Sure.
Sure. I think if you ask me, the positives, the sets, the throwbacks to the game, it has its own original narrative, so it can kind of spread its own path.
Yeah.
I like all the casting, and the performances are better than I thought they would be. And this is a very Greg comment though, where I thought this show, the more serious it got, the more I liked it. I like when things are grounded. I've said this on the show for 4 fucking years. Like, I like when things are more grounded and I have to give a shit. And like, for me, even though sure, Lucy's dad running off in power armor was ridiculous, I like that she had to confront her dad and her mom as a ghoul. I was like, you have to she forced Kyle MacLachlan to make the right choice to put cold fusion into place, which is going to help society.
Yeah.
I like that, where she has to make that decision and she has to stop her zombie mom. I like that thing. That's when I watched that last episode, I said, this show has some feels. And I like that.
Yeah. I think for me, it's really like, and this is the case for most Fallout stuff, I would say, is that the drama is never really that compelling for me.
Sure.
Like, yeah, like, watching your dad die in 3 or whatever, and that kind of thing. It's just kind of like, it's for me, the strength of it is have a story that is worth something, that is like kind of interesting. There's intrigue. The storytelling is very competent, where it sets up this mystery and then pays it off. It was a little sloppy here and there. I do think it was great overall. I think the best parts for me were when they were really utilizing the sandbox.
Yep.
And kind of having fun with new characters, a new story, but still using kind of like the same, all the stuff we've come to know and love from the games. I would say that it's funny because like I still haven't seen I haven't seen Detective Pikachu or
I liked it.
The Sonic movies or anything like that. Or there's still a couple of video game adaptations that I haven't seen, but this might be my favorite.
It's probably the best one.
Because it's not that that's an especially high bar to clear.
No, the bar is so fucking low.
But I would give this season a B+.
I'm gonna shake your hand on B+.
Nice.
Yep, I think
it's great.
We're in agreement here.
So even though we've talked it to death, I would still recommend watching it.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. And do you have anything else?
No, I think it is much better than I thought it was. We are in agreement on a B+.
Hopefully, season 2 won't take too long.
Yeah, and
we'll do another episode on that someday.
Yeah, I was very impressed, and that's it for us on the Fallout TV series season 1. And we'll catch you guys next time on Goddamn GameCube. Thanks.